Little Match Girl by Hans Christian Andersen. It was so terribly cold. Snow was falling and it was almost dark. Evening came on, the last evening of the year. It was cold and glum. A poor little girl, bareheaded and barefooted, was walking through the streets. Of course, when she had left her house, she had been wearing slippers, but what good had they been? They were very good slippers. They were very big slippers, way too big for her, for they had belonged to her mother. The little girl had lost them running across the road where two carriages had rattled by terribly fast. One slipper she had not been able to be found again, and a boy had run off with the other, saying he could use it very well as a cradle someday when he had children of his own. And so the little girl walked on her naked feet, which were quite red and blue with the cold. In an old apron, she carried several packages of matches, and she held a box of them in her hand. No one had brought any of them all day long, and no one had given her a penny. Shivering with cold and hunger, she crept along, a picture of misery, poor little girl. The snowflakes fell on her long fair hair, which hung in pretty curls over her neck. But she did not think of her pretty curls now. It was all the window lights were shining. There was a wonderful smell of roast goose, for it was New Year's Eve. Yes, she thought of that. In a corner formed by two houses, one of which projected further out into the street than the other, she sat down and drew up her little feet under her. She was getting colder and colder, but had not dared to go home, for she had sold no matches, nor earned a single penny, and her father surely beat her. Besides, it was cold at home, for they had nothing over them but a roof through which the wind whistled through the biggest cracks and had been stuffed with straw and rags. Her hands were almost dead with cold. Oh, how much one little match might warm her. If she could only take one from the box and rub it against the wall and warm her hands. She drew one out. How it sputtered and burned. It made a warm, bright flame like a little candle as her hand held over it. But it gave a strange light. It really seemed to the little girl as if she were sitting before a great iron stove with skinny brass knobs and a brass cover. How wonderfully the fire burned. How comfortable it was. The youngster stretched out her feet to warm them too. Then the little flame went out. The stove vanished, and she only had remains of the burnt match in her hand. She struck another match against the wall. It burned brightly, and when the light fell upon the wall, it became transparent, a thin veil, and she could see through it into a room. On a table, a snow-white cloth was spread, and on it stood the finest china. The roast goose seemed gloriously stuffed with apples and prunes, and then, what was still better, the goose jumped down from the dish and waddled along the floor with the knife and fork in its breast, right over to the little girl. Then the match went out, and she could only see the thick, cold wall. She lighted another match when she was sitting under the most beautiful Christmas tree. It was much larger and much more beautiful than the one she had seen last Christmas through the glass door at a rich merchant's home. Thousands of candles burned on green branches, and colored pictures like those in the print shop looked down at her. The little girl reached down both of her hands towards them. Then the match went out, but the Christmas lights still mounted higher. She saw them now as bright stars in the sky. One of them fell down, forming a long line of fire. Now someone is dying, thought the little girl. For her old grandmother, the only person who had loved her, who was now dead, had told her that when a star fell down, a soul went up to God. She rubbed another match against the wall. It became bright again. In the glow, the old grandmother stood clear and shining, kind and lovely. Grandmother, the child cried. Oh, take me with you. I know you will disappear when the match burns out. You will vanish like the warm stove, the wonderful roast goose, and the beautiful big Christmas tree. And she quickly struck the whole bunch of matches for which she had kept her grandmother with her. And the matches burned with such a glow that it came brighter than daylight. Grandmother had never been so grand and beautiful. She took the little girl in her arms, and both of them flew into brightness and joy above the earth. Very, very high, and up there was neither cold, nor hunger, nor fear. They were with God. But in a corner, leaning against the wall, sat the little girl with red cheeks and a smile on her face, frozen to death on the last evening of the old year. The New Year's sun rose upon the little dead body. The child sat there, stiff cold, holding the matches, of which one bundle was almost burnt. She wanted to warm herself, the people said. No one imagined what beautiful things she had seen and how happy she had gone with her old grandmother into the bright new year. The end.